What is going on, YouTube? Northeast Ohio Sports Cards. Here to just kind of have a little chat today. I have a topic that I've been thinking about for the last, I don't know, week or so, 2 weeks maybe, mostly the last week. That I've kind of just wanted to discuss. I got a couple of examples that I want to use for it. And the basic premise is trying to be able to read the room when there are market shifts happening in whatever you're collecting. We're going to talk about sports cards and comic books because we're going to use two different examples, one from each world. And what happens when the old ways and the old traditions and the old rules, if you will, to whatever market that you're in begins to break and change, and how to maybe recognize those. It gets a little tricky. I'm not going to lie, but this, like I said, this topic's just been on my mind. So we're just going to have kind of like a little chat today. Just got a little chat with you guys today. So what brought this on was my recent foray into the world of comic books. And we've seen this in sports cards too. I'm going to start with a sports card example, and then I'm going to transition that over to a hypothetical in the comic book world. So the gist of the discussion today is, every hobby that you're in, collector, investor, whatever it is, for the sports card world, we have certain, I don't want to say a set of rules that we abide by, but, for example, in basketball, Prism's king. Okay. That's just if you ask anybody, hey, I want to get into basketball, what set should I target? 98% of people are going to say Prism. You're going to go after Prism. You could kind of go with the same thing with grading companies. Most people are going to say PSA. That gets a little more tricky nowadays. But in general, PSA is king. Regardless of which grading company you like, dislike, love, hate, whatever, there is no denying that PSA 10 is king of the mountain. Calm down, BGS people. I know BGS 10s and black labels sell for more, but you're probably not going to get one when you grade with them. So just chill. Your primary grade's a 9.5. But anyways, PSA 10 is basically the main grade in the hobby. If anyone asks, that's your answer. And you could cite any one of a number of 100 different examples of these types of things. Stay away from non-licensed product. Don't go after Panini baseball stuff because it won't hold long-term value. Be careful with Prism draft product because once the pro uniform stuff comes out, that's gonna not be worth as much because the money will shift over to the pro uniform stuff. Just these general rules of thumb. So my pondering today is what happens when those rules change. And I can think of two recent examples in the sports card world, and we're going to talk about how this applies to the comic book world. In the sports card world, the most obvious one to me, and if you guys can think of another one, please let me know. Actually, there's three. The most obvious and most recent one is in the baseball market. So for the longest time, baseball, and we've talked about this before on the channel, the primary card that you wanted was the paper. So there's two types of paper for the comic book people watching this. There's two types of cards. There's paper cards and there's chrome cards. And you've seen this in Marvel cards before and whatnot. And when it comes to baseball cards, they would put out essentially two versions. So I have up here Fernando Tatis, one of the hottest young rookies or young players in baseball. This is his 2019 Topps base paper. So it's a paper-based product. This is his 2019 chrome-based card. So it has the shiny finish on it. For the longest time, paper was considered the one that you wanted. If, a year ago, you went and asked someone that lived in the baseball market on the day-to-day and said, hey, I want to go buy some Tatis. What do you think I should get? 2019 Topps base paper, PSA 10. Go have at it. Cool. What about this chrome thing? I mean, that's fine too, but most baseball people really want the paper. That's the one that's the more desirable. That's the one you should get. Chrome will be a little bit cheaper. Oh, okay, cool. Let me go buy some Tatis paper. That's been the way, as Mando would say. This is the way. You buy paper, not Chrome, because baseball's an old school thing and we like our paper cards. That's what our roots and our foundations are built in. Go buy paper. So what happened last year? The sports card market exploded, mostly because of basketball cards. Basketball market led the charge, and in basketball, Chrome is king. Prism, Optic, Select, all of them, Chrome-based cards, shiny finishes. Basketball market looks down on paper. Paper products are the redheaded stepchild of the hobby, whether that's Don Russ or Hoops or whatever it is. They just do not care. So the basketball market's exploding. It's going absolutely crazy, along with the rest of the card market. What happens? Basketball season begins to wind down. Here comes baseball season. Basketball degens say, hey, I want to throw some of my profits around into the baseball world. And they make the leap. Well, they come over and they see Mr. Tatis or Mr. Soto or Acuna, take your pick, and they come in and they're told, hey, man, you want this paper one? And they're like, nah, I'm all about that Chrome. And what happens? New money floods in and the market shifts to Chrome. They come in, start firing money at Chrome, and all of a sudden, the Chrome now outsells the paper. You can see it here on the graph. The blue line is paper, and I went back a full year because it pretty much captures what I wanted to talk about. Blue line's paper. Pink line catches up a little bit, but blue's still in the lead. Right here is when the sports card market went nuts in the summer. It spikes up, and then you could see the purple, as we trace along the line, overtakes blue, and then now continues to spread apart, and look at how wide it is now in the current day. So because an entirely new market came in of buyer, new group of buyers came in and upset the old rules. They didn't care about the old rules. They didn't care about what made sense before. They were the new money, and the new money outweighed the old and shifted the entire market. Where else have we seen this recently? In the sports card world, I don't have examples of this pulled up, but at one point in time, not long ago, BGS 9.5s outsold PSA 10s, like within the last couple of years. Hasn't been that way since. Look at it now. PSA 10 crushes a BGS 9.5 in resale price. Why? Because new money came in, new investors came in, new influencers came in, and they wanted a 10 in the top right-hand corner, not a 9.5. More and more people started talking about PSA, and the market shifted because people didn't care that, both of them were very respected brands and grading companies. It's not like one was fly by night or anything, but people want 10s. The market decided that people want 10s. The new people coming into the market, all the influx of people said they were comparing two cards to each other. They weren't necessarily born and bred in the sports card market. And they're like, well, duh, I want the 10. 10 is better than 9.5. Why would I want 9.5 when 10 is more? And boom, just like that, the market shifts. We saw it recently last year with NBA Mosaic. New product released. Most people in the hobby were like, Mosaic, whatever. And it did quite well for itself as a brand new product because the new people to the hobby had access to it, and it sold quite well. Now, it didn't jump any of the established products, but it definitely outperformed what people thought. And I believe you're starting to see it now, and we're getting a little more speculative at this point. But Select specifically, and it's coming to retail this year for football and I believe basketball. That's the rumor. Select has been getting a lot of steam lately. Maybe we're a year or two away from Select being the king of the sports card world instead of Prism. It could easily happen. Lower population counts, um, more parallels. Maybe those are the premier cards that people want, not Prism. Prism's probably still going to do quite well for itself, but there's a legitimate chance it's not King of the Ring in 2 or 3 years. It has been since 2012, basically. But that can change. So the trick is, when this starts to happen, are you one of the people that can look and see what's going on and make adjustments and make a play or shift your mindset? Or are you one of the ones complaining on Facebook or a Discord or whatever, saying, these idiots buying up all this Chrome, they're so stupid. Don't they know paper's better? And then fast forward a couple months and Chrome is king, and paper's still good, but Chrome's king now. That's the one that you want, at least of the newer guys. Tatis or Soto, if you wanted one of their rookies, you'd want a PSA 10 Chrome. And like I said, that's a very specific example, but you kind of get the point at what I'm getting at. Now, let's cross the streams. I have, as recently been documented on the channel, have been diving deeper and deeper into the world of graded comic books. And I'm looking at it from the sports card perspective. So what you see a lot on the graded comic book side is people freaking out about prices and related to their CGC census. So New Mutants 98, for example, one that I don't have my copy handy, but one that I recently picked up. New Mutants 98, CGC 9.8, direct edition. I got mine for about $1,200 about 3 weeks ago. It's currently $2,200 to $2,500. What you'll see if you look at any comic book stuff recently is people freaking out about how this is a terrible investment. And I can't believe people are buying this high census count. That's the term for comic books. High census count book. This is a terrible idea. How could people be doing this? They're so dumb. And once again, I'm microcosming a certain segment of the community. A lot of people understand what's going on, but you get the idea. The old guard is following the old rules. And maybe there's a chance, maybe they're right. Maybe I am an idiot for buying it when I did. And they're still saying the same thing now at 2,000, that this is dumb. Why are people buying this book for 2,000? And once again, not everybody, but a certain segment are questioning why this Ultimate Fallout 4, for example, is another one. That book's like $3,000 now. First appearance of Miles Morales. But New Mutants 98, a little bit older, came out in 91. But on the CGC census, and this is what they freak out about, there's 3,364 in a CGC 9.8. And they're freaking out that this is a high population count book. And in comic book terms, it is. If you look at slightly older stuff into the 70s and the 80s, and if you go back even further, 9.8s become extremely rare extremely quickly. But this particular book, along with others of the Copper Age, if you will, the stuff from the late 80s, early 90s, has been seeing huge price spikes lately. And they can't figure out why. And they don't understand why people are investing in these. Meanwhile, so that's the old guard approach. As the new money coming into the market, I am looking at this like, hey, let me flick back over here for an example. Fernando Tatis, you want his Topps Chrome. There's 6,110 of them. If that doesn't float your boat, there's 11,417 papers. No one blinks an eye at that in the sports card market. 11,417 plus 6,000 Chromes. That's 17,000 of his two primary rookie cards. Like if you're buying a Tatis, you want one of those two. There's 17,000 to choose from. And the Chrome goes for $461. The paper goes for $275. Over here, there's only one first appearance Deadpool. It's New Mutants 98. And new money, us sports card investors and other new money coming into the thing. We're not the only ones coming. We like whatever the best grading company is, in this case, CGC, and we want their top main grade, in this case, 9.8. That's the main grade for a CGC book. Yes, you can get a 9.9, and yes, you can get a 10. They're extremely rare. And we look at that and go, wait, you're telling me there's only 3,300 of those that exist? That's it. End of story. And yes, comic book people, I know there are people out there that probably have exquisite copies of New Mutants 98 bagged and boarded that have just never been submitted to CGC. But let's be honest, it's not that many. Because otherwise, they probably would have already sent them in, or they're never going to send them in because they just don't want to. So you're talking about a 3,300 pop count, to use now a sports card term, of one of the most popular characters in the Marvel Universe. And only 3,300 exist. In my opinion, I'm looking at that going, why isn't it higher? How is this only $2,000 for this comic book? This is insane. This should be way more. That's it. There's no other options. It's not like sports cards where you could just go buy a different version. You know, if you want Zion, you could buy his Prism, you could buy his Optic, you could buy his Select, you could buy his Silver, you could buy his Ruby Wave, you could buy his Courtside, you could buy an RPA. Take your pick. If you want a first appearance of Deadpool, there's 3,364 of them. End of story in a CGC 9.8. And if it's not graded yet, it doesn't count. Because if the price spikes, you got to wait a month or 2 months or 3 months or whatever it takes CGC to grade it. And maybe in the meantime, it collapses. Though I don't think that it will. So who's the crazy one? Is the comic book guy that's been living in this world his entire life, looking at recent sales of New Mutants 98, going, man, you're nuts. You're spending $2,000 on a New Mutants 98. That's a high pop count or a high census book at 3,300. You are all freaking crazy and lost your mind. Or am I right? Looking at this from an outsider perspective and going, there's only 3,300 of those? Are you kidding me? Of course I'm buying this for $1,200 instantly. How many more can I get? You know, I recently just bought, and I haven't had it yet. It'll be on an unboxing video soon, I'm sure. So, spoiling a mail day coming to you. This is my most recent pickup. Amazing Spider-Man 252 CGC 9.8. Now, the one in the picture here is off white to white. Mine is white pages, the one that I got. This is an iconic cover. It's a classic cover throwback. It's a homage to Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man. In addition, that alone would be, you know, there's been tons of these done, but this was one of the first ones done. In addition, this is the first appearance of the black costume, aka the symbiote, aka what eventually turns into Venom. Amazing Spider-Man 300 has gone absolutely crazy. That's the first appearance of Venom. That book's like $5,000 to $6,000 now. So this is the first appearance of what leads to that, if you will. A major key, and this has gone up quite a bit even just since December. It's double almost in price since December. I wanted one of these. I picked up the Secret Wars number 8 a few weeks ago. That's the origin story to how he got this suit. Also a classic cover. They came out very close together. And I wanted this to pair with it. So after I've told you that entire little rundown, if you're not familiar with comic books, you'd be like, that's cool. Now, this book came out in 84. The CGC census on this is 1,300. That's it. I got this for $1,500. They go for between $1,500 and $1,800 right now. To me, as an outsider, that seems cheap. I know $1,500 to $2,000 is not an insignificant amount of money. For a lot of people, that's a ton of money, especially to spend on a comic book. But I'm looking at that from an outside perspective going, you're crazy. There's 1,300 of these, and that's all that it costs. You're nuts. Buy these things all day long. Meanwhile, in one of the Facebook groups that I'm in, I saw a post about this just yesterday going, holy cow, how's this book this price now? This is nuts. Who's right? Who's wrong? One of us probably is going to be right. One of us is probably going to be wrong. The comic book world is going crazy about why these prices are going nuts. And us people coming from the sports card market are looking at it like this is a massive buying opportunity. Here's the thing. 3,000 on a New Mutants 98 was probably a lot with the current market level that existed. As we well know, coming from the sports card world, that's nothing. Look at how little movement it takes to shift a price on something in a sports card with a low population count. You have something like a certain optic color or Select, for example. Select's gotten talked about a lot lately and the prices have shot up. A lot of that is because there's not a lot on the market. So they keep getting bought up, and the price keeps moving up. The same thing is happening in comic books. It took me a week, almost a week and a half to 2 weeks to find this comic book in a price that I wanted to pay. Imagine that in the sports card world. There's only 1,300 of these things. I don't think the comic book market understands, or they're just not seeing, or they're not realizing that there is new money coming in, and new money does not care about their old rules. New money thinks 1,300 is nothing. New money thinks 3,300 is nothing for a New Mutants 98 on the census count. And it's shifting the market. And it's kind of almost like an adapt or die situation. You either read the room that this is what's happening, or you kind of get left behind and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, why didn't I buy more of those? And once again, maybe I'm the one that's wrong. You guys tell me, what do you guys think? I have sports cards people that watch these videos, and I have some comic book people that watch these videos. Am I the crazy one looking at a CGC census of New Mutants 98 at 3,300 or an Amazing Spider-Man 252 at 1,300 and going, you guys are nuts. These should be selling for way more. If anything comes over from the sports card market, this is nothing, and the prices are going to go to the moon, or other collectible markets. It doesn't have to be sports cards. Or is the old guard comic book market correct, going, no, can't invest in New Mutants 98. This is a bubble that's going to pop. You can't be throwing money into this thing. There's way too many of them out there. 3,300 is way too high. And once again, I'm being a little hyperbolic here. Not everyone's like that, but there's enough of that chatter out there. You see it on a lot of YouTube videos and stuff like that. And like, once again, to go back to the sports card side of things, people were saying the same thing about paper versus chrome not that long ago. And now chrome's king and it's just accepted. And it's not an apples to oranges comparison, but it's the most recent one that I could think of in the sports card world, where new money came into the market and shifted the marketplace, and it happened fast. And I really do think that's what's happening in the comic book market right now. New money is coming in, it's shifting the market fast, and the old guard is not realizing what's happened, and part of them are getting left behind. Or not left behind, but just left questioning, not understanding what's going on. So what do you guys think? For the comic book situation here, because that's kind of like happening right now. The chrome thing's behind us, that's established. People want chrome now over paper. That's the way that it is. The chrome holds the higher demand. So for this comic book spec, whether you're in the comic book market or not, if you've never even thought about buying a comic book, but you watch mostly for the sports card stuff, does this make what I'm saying make sense to you? And for you comic book people, same thing. Does this make sense? Do you understand the angle that us new people coming in are looking at this from? And does that make sense? And who is one of us right? Are we both right? Both sides, the new money versus the old money? Or is one of us right and one of us wrong? Let me know down below. So that's all I got for you guys today. I just kind of wanted to like I said, no real, just a little chat, just a chat about this old money, new money, market shifts, old way of thinking versus new ways of thinking, and how to, the tricky part is how do you know what it is? Is it just a little blip, or is this real? I could tell you personally, sports card money is flowing into the comic book market. Not everybody, but when you're CGC censuses, a high book is 3,300. It doesn't take much new money coming in to just blow that entire market out of the water. That market will shift fast. There is not a lot of those. Plus, like a book like Amazing Spider-Man 252, yeah, there's 1,300 on the census report. A book like this, and comic book people would know this more than I would as a newcomer to the game, how many of those are just locked away, never to be sold? Like, what percentage of something like Amazing Spider-Man 252 are people just never going to sell? You know, this thing could go to the moon, if you will, and they still would not sell because it's part of their permanent collection. You see a lot more of that in the comic book world than you do the sports card world. The sports card world, we're very much more, not in all cases, but a lot of people are like, wait, how much is it now? It went up how much percent? Cool. See ya. See ya, Luca PSA 10. Bye. Catch you on the flip side. I'll buy you back in 6 months. The comic book world, there's much more serious collectors of this thing enters their realm and it is never coming out. So what percentage of the census on an Amazing Spider-Man 252, there's little over 1,300 of them. What percent of that is never seeing the light of day? So now take that off. That quantity doesn't exist anymore. So that census is even lower now. So, like I said, that's all I got for you guys. Let me know what you guys think down below. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.